Hey everyone, we are here at Summer Game Fest, aka Key 3, that's what we've been calling it, to talk to Glen Schofield about the Callisto Protocol. Glen, how has it been? Like, you got to show off gameplay.
Oh man, it feels good.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been kind of hiding it for a couple of years, so it's always good to talk about your game, that's for sure.
And it had such a positive reaction at Summer Game Fest Live. What's been the big takeaway for you on the dev team?
I think just how positive everybody's been. I mean, people have their own opinions, and man, it's been really positive for us, so we've been really excited about it, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
And I mean, so obviously since working on Dead Space, technology has changed, graphics have changed. I mean, even next-gen consoles. How are you utilizing not only what you've learned working in the games industry for so long, but how are you utilizing modern technologies to help create, and elicit that emotion from players?
Right. Well, both horror and sci-fi can really benefit from realism. Sci-fi because it's you're making it all up, right? It's your imagination. So how do you make it real, right? You add rust, you add grime, you add dirt. You're like you don't know what that thing is, but the fact that you can relate to it makes it better. And horror needs realism because you just want to suck the player in, right? The more you can make them feel like they're in that environment, the scarier it's going to be. So the new graphic systems, the new hardware, the new rendering techniques, ray tracing, all that have really helped us make a game that's really realistic. And even the characters look stunningly real. So that's really helped. The audio, right? Now you hear something, especially with headphones, I hear something like there. Now, we do that on purpose now. We're like, put the monster sound way up to the left so that the player hopefully will be a little bit more twitchy when they're looking around, right? And that adds to oh man, what's behind me? But then you want to look forward. So I think that's going to help with the scares and the tension and stuff like that. And of course the haptics, which we're still trying to get in all the ideas we have into it, but snapping a bone or that sort of thing, and you want to feel that, right?
I was going to say, so there's me playing Astro's Playroom and just feeling the snow beneath my feet, and then there's you lot going down, okay, let's snap a bone.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot more of this in horror movies like zombies, where they're like contortionists, and they're like, you hear the bones cracking and snapping. So, yeah, we want to get that in there.
I was going to ask, your feelings on horror, and, in particular when you're approaching it as a third-person game versus a first-person game, because obviously, first-person, you have that narrower field of view, whereas with third-person, you are still trying to engage the player in a way that they are twitchy about their surroundings, but they have, I guess, more agency. They have more time to react to things. Does that change how you approach designing encounters?
Yeah, I mean, third person, having just spent the last 9-10 years making first person, it's a different game.
Yeah.
It's a different animal, right? It's all about your arms and your weapon. I mean, your weapon's your character. But in third person, it's like you got to worry about just about everything.
Yeah.
Did something just drip on me? You don't see that stuff in first person. Or, the change just dragged. So, and then of course the deaths don't work as much, in third person, man, you see the deaths, you see the stomp, you see all the action that the player does. I mean, it is definitely harder because now you've got a billion animations.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it brings you more into it makes you want to save that character more because that's you.
So, I mean, how's your approach to, speaking to dev teams over the years, especially working on horror games, is the philosophy of how much you want to keep your player alive? Because obviously in things like Dead Space, in things like the Callisto Protocol, you've got the gory deaths. We saw one in Summer Game Fest. So you obviously want your player to experience those.
Yes.
And, feel that tension and feel that there is going to be consequences to messing up.
Yes.
But how do you also keep that tension ramping up so you get to a point where, like, you know, if I'm playing and it's like, I died here, so I'm going to deliberately avoid this. I don't want to have to memorize it.
Right. Well, you know, players inherently don't want to die.
Yeah.
You die 5 times and you're like mad at yourself, you know.
Yeah.
So you don't want that to happen. But we know you're going to die in this game. But we try and we'll be like, we count all the time. We're like, all right, somebody can die 3 times here and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, there may be some place later in the game that's like, you know, 4 times is all right. When we start to get to the bigger numbers, we don't want that to happen. We know it will happen, so we know the player is going to die, and we know that the player is going to want to try and keep themselves alive.
Yeah.
So it's just the way that goes. And then when you do die, you are scared because you're mad at yourself, or you lose stuff, or you got to start over again, or you've just got to go through that scary spot again.
Yeah.
So in our game, I know you want to keep yourself alive.
Yeah. So it's not even like you get the exposure because you kind of have the inherent fear that you're going to die again, you know?
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
And you know you're going to die, yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't know how you're going to die.
Oh, interesting.
That's cool.
I was going to say danger around every corner.
Yeah, I hope so.
When it comes to working on the gore stuff, and, you know, I was fielding questions from my team because everyone is so excited, and they were like, you know, someone brought up the Mortal Kombat team when they were coming up with fatalities years ago.
Oh, right, sure.
Yeah, and they were like, sometimes it gets a little heavy having to work on, innards being ripped out in very creative ways. And how is the team approaching, you know, creating these just gruesome deaths over and over?
You know, it's only a few people in a way. You got some animators who are doing it. You have your character creators who are doing it a little bit. Of course, your rendering team. So that's pretty good. Yeah, so you've got about 30 people are probably working on that.
Yeah.
Out of 200 or whatever. And there were times when, like the rendering guys, they're just looking at. This is gonna sound awful, but it's on the internet. Car crashes. All sorts of
no.
things.
As someone who grew up on like Rotten.com, I've been there. Yeah.
So, yeah, they get to a point where some of them are like, I've seen enough, and the others are like, whatever now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gets heavy. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, so it's kind of the state of horror. What's it been like, you know, making a game like this? You know, gaming development is so much more expensive these days, and there is always kind of the feel that something has to have, you know, take something like Marvel's Avengers. You know, it was a fantastic single player game, and then they were like, no, you got to have this online part of it. You know, everything has to have this return, and it feels like, you know, these single player experiences, particularly horror, especially to ones the scope and, you know, just how, like, not expensive looking, but, you know, like how well made this game looks.
Yeah,
you know,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and you know, we had to find the right partner that was saying, I'm willing to let you make a franchise. Yeah. Right? Because on the beginning of this game, the whole damn game, it's just huge investment because you've got a new engine, a new team, no mechanics, right? There's nothing you can use. Everything is starting from scratch. And as a matter of fact, when you're working on a game like this, you don't even get to scares for like a year and a half.
Wow.
Because you're making the characters, you're making the enemies, you're building the worlds, you have to build special effects. Like when I was working on Call of Duty, we had 10 years of special effects. Yeah. So we could prototype real quick. Yeah. Like prototyping for this game has been boxes and stuff like that. Sort of what you hear like old school. There's a big investment. I thank God that Crafton took the chance with us and took the plunge, and we hope we make more than our investment back, and that they can see the future of this is a franchise. So it is a big deal, but we also saw this trend where like everything's going online.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a big game that made it single player. There's another one. There's still room for single player.
Yes. And I guess also it's like it can live online in a different way in terms of,
Yes.
especially with, scares, YouTube, Twitch, kind of
Yep.
gives that
Yep.
online injection.
Yep.
I was gonna ask. So obviously, when the game was announced, it was gonna be part of the PUBG sort of wider universe, and then recently came the announcement that it was no longer. But there are going to be ties. Are you able to talk to a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we first started, when I first joined them, they were working on this giant timeline and story and lore and everything for PUBG. Like, they want to make more games sort of in that universe. So they were like, hey, could you fit in this like 300 years in the future? I'm like, sounds like a pretty good idea, We're going to be different, and they're like, well, look, we're dystopian. And so we went along that way for a while. And then, I don't know, it was really a while ago. I want to say a year or so. We're already not in that world.
Right.
Where the story is going in a direction, characters, universe, world, everything. And so it was just kind of, we got reminded not too long ago when I got a couple of those questions where I'm like, we kind of got to announce that we're not in that world anymore. We didn't want to confuse the fans.
Yeah.
They were like, is that a VR game you're making? So.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
But don't get me wrong. One of the reasons why we're here is because of PUBG.
Yeah.
We're all fans of it. And you might see little tiny things in there. Won't have much to do with the story, but...
Just a nod. A nod and a wink. And I guess, is there anything you've been able to do? Well, obviously, we talked a little bit about advancements in technology, but even with regard to story, gameplay, anything you've been able to do in the Callisto Protocol that you haven't, it's been in the back of your mind for a long time. It's like, I'm just looking for the right project. Has there been anything like that?
It's just a more powerful machine, right? So I don't mean just. There's so much you can do with it, but it's not like it changes gameplay. Like when we went from 2D to 3D, which probably nobody remembers, it changed everything. When you went from 3D to VR, it changed everything.
Yeah.
But for a new console, it changes the haptics, it changes the sound, it changes the graphics, it changes what you can put on the screen.
Yeah.
For us, I'll get back to it, just that immersion, that realism, really, really did help. But it's not like we went, all of a sudden we can fly outside the box.
Yeah.
There was nothing really incredibly new. I'm going to get some designer that tells me I'm wrong.
I was going to say, you'll get a note on Slack.
Yeah, they're like liar.
Well, Glenn, Callisto Protocol is coming out later this year. Do you want to tell the folks at home when and when they can play it?
December 2nd.
Not long to wait.
Hope you enjoy it.
For more from Summer Game Fest, make sure to keep your eyes peeled to GameSpot.